What do you think?
Yeah, that works
Does that
great.
work? Yeah.
What are they? What brand are they?
It's a Costco. They get them in a big box. That's what they look like.
Those are great. Yeah, I've never tried that. Thank you. You learn something new every
Yeah,
day.
well, again, I discovered them a couple of years ago, and I thought, man,
Yeah,
these
it's
are just.
much better than those coffee.
Yeah, and you get a big old box, and it'll last you over
Yeah.
a year.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, can we have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Pittman. Councilmember Smith.
Here?
Councilmember Draper.
Here.
Councilmember Hatley. Here. Councilmember Goodson.
Here.
Vice Mayor Thompson. Here. Mayor Reynolds.
Here. The announcement from closed session is there was no closed session. So please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Salute. Pledge. Looking for a motion to adopt the agenda.
I move that we adopt the agenda.
I'll second that.
Motion carries.
Moving on to presentations and proclamations. We have two proclamations. This evening we have quite a large agenda, so for the sake of time, I'm simply going to present instead of read, if that's okay. I'm a slow reader. So we have a proclamation for the Feather Fiesta Days Parade and the Salvation Army. And if I could get the recipients to...
Want all of us at the same time?
One at a time.
Yeah.
They don't know who to go.
Okay. Come on, come on. You're all up here. Come on. Come on.
Oh, you're...
Get them up there, Sherry.
Got the group, got the group. Yes. Need him come down here specifically.
Okay, great. All right, usually I read the whole thing, but we have a lot to do, so I'm just going to read the bottom paragraph. Very, very nice, thank you. Therefore, I, Chuck Reynolds, Mayor of the City of Oroville, in concurrence with the Oroville City Council, do hereby recognize the 100th year anniversary of the Feather... Wait a minute, this is a 100-year anniversary?
Yes, sir.
I got to read this. This is a proclamation recognizing the 100-year anniversary of the Feather Fiesta Days Grand Parade. Whereas May 11th, 2019 marks the 100th anniversary for the Feather Fiesta Days Grand Parade in the city of Oroville. And whereas for generations, thousands of individuals and families have come together to keep traditions alive, support small businesses, nonprofits, celebrate all the wonder our community has to offer, and enjoy the main attraction of the day, the Grand Parade. And whereas the Oroville Pageant Riders were the first mounted group to ever participate in the parade and will be serving as this year's Grand Marshals, and whereas the Oroville Exchange Club volunteers proudly contributing many hours and abundance of dedication to organize and execute the Grand Parade, this dedication spans several decades, and whereas the funds raised from the parade allows the Oroville Exchange Club to provide smoke alarms to senior citizens, aid in the prevention of child abuse, conduct the biannual candidates forum, annual search for talent, and Veterans Day parade. Now, therefore, I, Chuck Reynolds, Mayor of the City of Oroville, in concurrence with the Oroville City Council, do hereby recognize the 100th year anniversary of the Feather Fiesta Days Grand Parade and the contributions made by the Oroville Exchange Club, and urge all citizens to celebrate and participate in the Grand Parade on May 11th, 2019.
Painted by one of our members, Rosemary Fielder, and she signed this, and I'd like to present this to the city.
Oh, that's cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Oh, one more thing. I have to brag. We had our district convention this last weekend, and our Search for Talent kids won first place in all of our categories. We swept the whole district. It was so awesome.
Wow. This is Salvation Army.
Can you take that? Thank you. We have another proclamation here. It's a proclamation recognizing May 13th through 20th of 2019 as Salvation Army Week. Whereas the Salvation Army was founded in 1865 and has a long tradition of ministering in the city of Oroville to meet the needs of citizens and visitors, and whereas the Salvation Army of Oroville, together with volunteers, soldiers, and donors, help those in need by offering a hand up rather than a hand out. And whereas the city of Oroville supports people in need of our community through organizations such as the Salvation Army. And whereas the Salvation Army internationally serves people in over 130 countries, in Oroville they are able to help individuals and families in need, mainly because of generous donations from local community members. Whereas citizens of Oroville always respond with open hearts, a commitment to serve, and a desire to give financially to continually meet the need of our community. Now, therefore,
I, Chuck Reynolds, Mayor of the City of Oroville, in concurrence with the Oroville City Council, do hereby recognize, I don't have my glasses on,
May 13th through 2019 at Salvation Army Week, and urge all citizens to support our local Salvation Army and celebrate National Salvation Army Week. Congratulations. Thank you so very much for all that you do.
Is that right? Yeah. That's crazy. It was a big Okay, we have two presentations this evening. The first will be wildfire safety presentation by PG&E.
Something on your jacket I need to get off.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor Reynolds, members of the council. I'm Dan Blair, local public affairs representative for PG&E. And today I'm going to give an overview of some of the company's efforts for wildfire safety and then some of the plans we have moving forward for that plan. So the devastating wildfires of the past 2 years have made it overwhelmingly clear to the company that we need to adopt and address more actions to address the threat of wildfire and extreme weather with greater urgency. So as part of our commitment to safety, we're accelerating our safety measures and expanding on our efforts. So really, this slide here shows the three overarching categories for our plan, and I'm going to go into each one of these in a little more detail, so we can dive into those. But essentially, it's looking at real-time monitoring and intelligence and having as much information as we can, and as far as what's going out in the field, new and enhanced safety measures, and then system hardening and resiliency to ensure that our equipment is as safe as possible. So for real-time monitoring and intelligence, one of the big actions that we've taken is we established a wildfire operations center last year, and this is staffed 24 hours a day during fire season. And this operations center monitors potential wildfire threats across our service territory in real time and coordinates with first responders and other public safety agencies. And we have our meteorologists and our information folks who are there staffing that. And feeding into that Wildfire Operations Center for information, we're adding 1,300 roughly new weather stations by the year 2022. These weather stations are not only monitoring temperature, but also wind, humidity levels, and also 600 high-definition cameras so that we have real-time intelligence that our Wildfire Operations Center can view and pan that camera to see what's going on based on other information that comes in, as well as satellite imagery, intel on the ground, and things like that. And both the weather stations and the cameras are available online to the public, and those are actually websites that have multiple weather stations and cameras, not just from PG&E, but from multiple agencies. So it's really growing that information to have as much available as possible. One of the other safety measures is vegetation management. We know how important trees are to our customers, our communities, and our environment. And we're working with customers to prioritize wildfire safety and while working with them. So after listening to feedback and taking a closer look at system and historical data, we're increasing our focus on vegetation management around our electric lines. And we have the directive from the California Public Utility Commission in high fire threat areas to maintain a 4-foot radial clearance around our lines at all times of the year. And again, that's going to be in, when I say high fire threat area, it's going to be Tier 2, Tier 3 is designated with the California Public Utility Commission. So the map that they recently developed in the last couple of years is going to show where everyone's at in that area. So in most cases, to maintain that 4-foot radial clearance, we have to get about 12 feet for growth throughout that year, depending on species and timing. And then also the vertical column that you see going above the 4 feet, that's really that ground to sky clearance of the 4 feet as well. And along with this program, we're also looking into potential species of trees that could potentially fail and strike lines, and the comprehensive look and the directives that we're getting from our state regulators is becoming more and more stringent on all the time on vegetation management to increase safety as much as possible for vegetation management. Another measure that we've implemented and is making quite a bit of progress is an enhanced inspection program. So we have our routine inspections that we do for all of our equipment, but after the campfire, the decision was made that we are going to do a comprehensive inspection of absolutely everything, distribution and transmission. And so we're conducting those accelerated safety inspections. And for the transmission, it's about 50,000 structures over about 5,500 miles. And on the distribution side, it's over 685,000 structures crossing more than 25,000 miles of distribution lines. So it's quite a bit of work. And we're doing these inspections with a combination of traditional tower climbing and visual inspections. We're also using drone capability with high definition camera for, this is the broadest scale we've used drones. And it really gives us great information with the advancements in technology. It's a lot more cost effective and obviously a lot safer. And we still do utilize helicopters for these inspections in areas where the drone capability or the visual inspection is not there. So, you know, we're trying to make the system as safe as possible, but the inevitable situation that there is a potential ignition from a lightning strike or another source, we want our system to be as strong as possible to avoid as much damage as possible. So we're making capital investments in our transmission and distribution electric system. We've made significant ones over the last several years, and we're continuing that. So we're looking to upgrade, strengthen our system, and make that as safe as possible. So this is going to include about over the next 10 years, we're looking at over 7,000 lines that we're going to replace the traditional line with insulated wire, which is essentially the distribution line covered in an insulated coating, and it avoids, if there is a vegetation strike, it can significantly reduce the risk of a fire igniting. And so that's a great tool that we have. We're also looking at targeted undergrounding distribution on a wider scale. We do underground electric lines, and traditionally that's been done through our Rule 28 program that cities and counties participate and get credits in. We're looking to even expand that. And with the changing landscape, it's not going to happen overnight. It's a very costly, time-consuming, more complicated way to build an electric line, but we see the benefit of it, and we're looking at that, and that's on the table for sure. And then also, the last bullet there is piloting resilient zones, which is targeting areas that maybe have higher fire threat risks, high outages, and seeing if there's ways we can redesign the system to maybe give them more redundant lines to avoid outages, and potentially isolate them and make their system more safe and more reliable. And stop me if there are any questions if I'm going too fast. Don't mean to go too fast or any of this. So another program that I know is going to be of a lot of interest to the city is our public safety power shutoff. And this is and I'm sure there's been quite a bit of coverage lately and discussion about this, so I'm sure it's not, council's not hearing it for the first time. But this is an effort that PG&E is coordinating with the other regulated utilities in the state, which is San Diego Gas and Electric, Southern California Edison, also Cal OES, Cal Fire at state level. And the directive from the Utility Commission is to have a proactive shutoff as part of our safety plan, our wildfire safety plan. And we initiated this for the first time last year, and we only included distribution lines. So as of the program this year did not include our high voltage transmission lines. Going forward, we are including those lines in there. So if there is the potential risk of a fire ignition based on certain weather conditions, and I'll talk about those in a second, PG&E may make the decision to shut down lines proactively to avoid that. And so given that we're now including transmission lines, that widens the scope of the impact to our communities. Turning a distribution line off in a community has maybe a few block impacts. Once we get in transmission lines that serve many substations and communities, it gets bigger and bigger. So we're communicating that earlier so the city knows what our plan is, and then so that we can work together as a region to develop plans for specific communities. So some of the factors that are going to go into determining if we are going to do a shutoff would be a potential, and none of these are, it's not a it's not a formulaic thing necessarily. It's a looking at all these factors as a combination. So red flag warning for weather, low humidity levels, the forecasted high winds, fuel conditions, and then on the ground observation. So if our crews are seeing things that they see that could potentially be unsafe, that could factor in as well. I also want to reiterate that this is going to be our last tool in the toolbox. This isn't something PG is going to want to do if we don't think it's going to avoid a significant wildfire risk. We understand the impacts to our communities, our customers, economic impacts, and we're working with our local partners. We're going to be doing some workshops to essentially plan for the potential of these, so we can work with communities directly on what the unique impacts and things we need to know about your community. Obviously, we're in tune that we have a lot of customers on medical equipment, and we have our medical baseline rate, which folks that are on those that have home medical equipment like oxygen tanks and other equipment, we already have them identified because they're on a lower rate for that use. So we know that, and we're working with county health and human service departments to identify those folks, to be able to share that information with respecting everyone's privacy, obviously, and then finding out where we need to let folks know. And when I get to the end of the presentation, there's a website that we want customers to go and make sure we have your updated contact information. So in case this, when in the event that we may have a shut off proactively, when we notify folks, it's the way they want to be notified. That's phone call, email, text, those options. And so given that we know a lot of certain sections of the communities don't use electronic devices as prolifically, we know that we're going to have to do outreach to just those certain populations. And if in the case of last year when we were doing a shut off, we pulled our workers off the gas side to go knock on doors, make sure we are getting a hold of people, utilizing all those resources that we do have. So staying on the topic of the potential shut off. So in the event that PG may shut the power down, our goal is to let our customers, our communities know 48 hours in advance. I would be letting the council and city leadership know first, this is coming, and then that information would then go to all of our customers through notifications, and there'll be a lot of communication. This won't be a one-time thing. Also, our goal is to then have another notification 24 hours before the shutoff, right before the shutoff, and then once power is restored. That way, if people go out of the area, maybe decide to stay with family, if they have an option to, they'll know when their power is back on at their house. And we also have our team of public safety specialists who's going to be working directly with your emergency personnel, making sure they know what's going on and they're informed. So we have a team, and we'll also integrate into any of the communication systems, notification systems being utilized locally. We'll feed information, obviously, through the city, so that information can be shared in that event.
Dan, if I could ask a question,
Of course.
please. What will be the maximum amount of time that you will be able to shut the grids off?
There isn't a specific maximum time. So depending on the weather conditions, that's going to really drive how long a shutoff is. And so this next slide here to start answering that question is the first process is make sure that weather is all clear and the conditions have gone away for what we think is the dangerous situation. So it's really going to be driven on the weather.
I have a related question. Are you going to assist major facilities like assisted living with backup generators? If PG can help fund those?
So we don't have given the scope of this program and the fact that during high heat, high wind events, the communities that could be impacted could be significant. So we don't have a comprehensive generator program that we're going to be dispersing those generators and doing that. What we want to do when we have the workshops is to identify those and identify where those resources might be locally so we can deploy those. we want to be a partner in that, but this is our plan for wildfire safety, and we want to work to address as many of those community needs as we can.
So Dan, I also have a question.
Yeah.
As it relates to Oroville specifically. Would you say that because of the more rural environment, we're likely more impacted than, let's say, Sacramento? And if so, or a larger metropolitan area where there's less, issues, forest, whatnot. And if that's the case, then specifically, if we have a red flag warning, and they last sometimes 2 or 3 days, so I see a huge impact potentially. And if that's the case, have you identified the impact as it relates to our city? So if you shut down the larger transmission lines, I mean, is that basically shutting down the entire city of Oroville? I mean, I'm sure that someone someplace knows that answer.
Sure. Yeah. So the
So commercial, I'm thinking stores, grocery stores, refrigeration,
Absolutely.
hospitals.
Yes.
Yeah, that could be pretty significant.
Absolutely. And the impacts could be significant and potentially will be. So we're sending letters out to every single PG&E customer, whether it's, a customer in Oroville or San Francisco or Eureka or Fresno. They're all getting a letter letting them know that's potentially, if we have to shut down or make the decision to shut down one of our high voltage 500 kV or 230 kilovolt transmission lines, that could potentially shut down several substations, which would then impact several communities. So,
Now, when you say
potentially-
community, is that like citywide,
City-
like the
sure.
entire city of
Absolutely.
Oroville? Okay.
Yeah. So, it's impossible to answer the question of what situation would shut down the entire city of Oroville, because it's all going to depend on where that threat is, the condition is, and what substations are connected to that. So, we have the Table Mountain substation, just west of a little northwest of Oroville. So if that's still being fed from our Vacaville substation, and the weather, the red flag warning and the weather conditions aren't immediately here, it's conceivable that Oroville will still have power. It's really going to depend on what lines are connecting to what substation and where that is. So this is going to happen. The conditions are going to be in that tier 2, tier 3 high fire threat area. The cascading dominoes are impossible to predict because it all depends on what lines we're concerned about in those conditions. So I don't mean to dodge the answer, but potentially it could, because you're right, Oroville is more north than Sacramento. It could be impacted more, but Sacramento could potentially be impacted quite a bit also. I mean, they're SMUD, so they're going to be in a different situation, but really
not to
anywheres,
protect
yeah.
this too much, but so let's hypothetically, let's say that because of the way the substations are situated, that when you have to go into this protocol and shut this system down, and it does impact, let's say, it does have a significant impact. Is there a plan in place then to make some changes to the infrastructure so that the metropolitan portion of Oroville then could have sustaining power, which I think would be important?
Yeah.
So commercial district, whatnot.
Sure.
So
Absolutely.
is that being looked at?
It is. It is being looked at. We're looking at that from a couple different angles. We're looking at from a larger infrastructure situation. So if there are investments in the grid that could keep communities and cities or communities, incorporated or not, on in certain situations when they're, say that a large transmission line was shut down. We're looking at the potential way to isolate if they're not in the weather area. And then we're also, part of the workshop and exercise we're going to be doing is prioritizing where we want to get power on first in that situation. So to your point about commercial, critical infrastructure, hospitals, assisted living, those situations. So we're going to have a plan in place working with the city and the larger region so we can identify those.
Dan, you've kind of exceeded the time we normally have for presentations. I think we've heard the gist of it, but I assume there are more questions, and I don't want to cut those off.
Just had one quick one.
Yes.
If someone else. I was just going to say that from what I understand, Oroville Hospital has a backup generator system. I know Rayleigh's does. And so I would think a lot of the grocery stores would have some kind of backup system if it came to that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and that's why we want, the this presentation happen now, communicate this now, and to have the community and the city and our businesses be as prepared as possible, and make sure that those are gassed up. If there is a need, we can talk about it. We can always look at that. So I don't want to take up any more of your time. I will just, this website right here, pge.com/wildfire safety. I encourage the council to share that, or any members of the public. That's where you can sign up for the alerts, make sure we have your right information. You can also get all the information I presented, as well as a lot of other good stuff. So.
Thank you, Dan.
I have a quick question I need to ask too. When you presented the issue on your distribution lines and the clearances for the vegetation, are you gonna be doing any work on the service drops to the houses?
Yeah.
As far as vegetation management?
On the service drops to if it's PG&E infrastructure, if it's PG&E owned infrastructure, yes. If it's privately owned, no.
And your tree lines, or your, I call it tree lines,
Yeah.
are they gonna be bundled together, or are they gonna still stand on the normal spread on your distribution lines when you have the insulated wire?
They'll still be on the same poles. In some cases, we're also putting larger cross arms so that
Gotcha.
they're farther
Okay,
apart.
Thank you, appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
So I understand why PG&E is doing this. We all understand the liability they had, but the impacts on the community could be tremendous. And I guarantee they won't be limited to complaining just to PG&E. I guarantee the council will hear about this too if they actually shut off power. So
New
it's a
value
very significant
New
issue.
value in generators.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you for your time.
Could we have another presentation by Crown Metals Recycling?
First of all, I'd like to thank the mayor and the city council for hearing us and also hearing our concerns. We have had an uphill battle in regards to getting local business to contribute and able to hire local hires in this, am I not talking loud? Oh, okay, sorry. For local businesses to be involved in the Cal Recycle, Cal OES, repair of the campfire. We are now trying to understand why some businesses, large businesses, have been able to come into our local area and do business where our local businesses have been locked out. Not given the process from Cal OES, Cal Recycle, not given an opportunity is what we're looking for. Not, as someone said earlier, not a handout, but a hand up. And so that's what we're looking for today, is to understand the process, to understand why local businesses are cut out of opportunities to hire locally, keep our money locally, and also give opportunities to grow. And I think Suzanne is going to elaborate.
Maybe. Hi, Suzanne Fox, representing Crown Metals. And we met with the city on April 16th and with Bill Lagrone and also Gary to talk about Odin Metals, who we were just curious if they were permitted, what their license status was. They are designated as the recipient for scrap metals for the Cal Recycle Debris Removal Project. As Rashid said, a lot of the businesses are locked out. They're trying to participate, and it's a shut door. And our understanding is, when the governor and the president did the proclamation, that they did want the local community to participate. They did want to bring those dollars here to help the recovery, the rebuilding, and that's not happening. And so we're not looking for favoritism. We're looking for equity. We're looking for fairness. We're looking for transparency. And we're looking for a pathway for local businesses to be able to approach a body and talk about how they can participate in the debris removal. So we're also hoping for your support. And we would like an update, if not now, very soon, on the status of Odin Metals in terms of they get all their permitting papers in, are they licensed, those sorts of things. And so we're hoping we can get that. And then,
Support letter.
I did. Oh, and a letter of support. So go ahead. This is Dylan from Crown Metals.
Good evening, by the way. My name's Dylan McFadden. I own Crown Metals, and Rashid and Suzanne work on my behalf. Like I said, we're just coming here for support. Like I said, we're local business. I've been in this community all my life, and I've had businesses here in Butte County and in Oroville for the last 6 years. So this is a big project, and this is our business. And it's been an uphill battle, from day one with, like I said, Cal Recycle, Cal OES. There's just no response. And so not only to bring it out to the public that, hey, local businesses, it's extremely frustrating. We're not having any part of this. You know what I mean? We're completely locked up. But we also want the local support to try to get involved in this mandated process and bring, like I said, employ those 30 people should be employed with local businesses and the people here, and bring those dollars here that are going to stay here, these businesses that are going to grow and stay here. So that's what we're looking for, is your guys' support and kind of bring this to your attention. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I would indicate that we are fully supportive of them. We are investigating the permit process, as they brought up, and I just want to make it clear the city did not select the recycling company. It may be that the recycling company that they are using needs some additional permits, and if so, we will pursue that and certainly support, and I'd encourage council to support a letter to both FEMA and OES to support these folks. I agree with them.
Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Wow.
We have someone who has a sort of an emergency, so we're going to move item number 10 from the public hearings up to hear it now, if that's okay with everyone, for the sake of the situation. So, Bud Tracy. This is ordinance 1839, establishing a business improvement district.
Okay. He always wants to sit down. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. This is the, we hope, final presentation, final meeting on the Business Improvement District for downtown. As I think you've all known, since around February when we really got fired up, that we've, after our January 31st public meeting at the, in the downtown, basically something we can all get behind, everybody becoming one voice, the Business Improvement District really being pushed very hard. Thank you for understanding the emergency tonight. Do appreciate that part. But I want to make sure that everybody still gets a chance to have any input. We did go through the protest hearing, and out of the 124 businesses, there were essentially 2, excuse me, and acknowledged and understood, and everybody else, there's been a enormous amount of work by different committees have been put together already. The existing ODBA has expanded magically. It was roughly 7 members or so when we first started talking about it, and it's up in the 30 or 40 range now, and almost everybody participating, which is even more fun. Events and things of that type. As I understand it tonight, there's the ordinance and the MOU. The MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, is with the ODBA. And we've worked with city attorney and mainly looking also at all kinds of other cities and the things that they've done in their areas. We've tried to keep it funded by private enterprise all the way through. This part, it has been by private enterprise and by the ODBA, I must add. At the end, when we got just about there and everybody was getting a little bit tired, they put up the last amount. And then again, the committees have been having event meetings and things of that type. So everything, I think, is in place, and wanted to encourage highly that we move forward tonight, and hope to hear from anybody else. And this is Dave Kilborn, the consultant, who's been with us, if anybody would like to hear from him. Thank you very much, and I'm seeking your support.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the dais? Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers on this item?
Mr. Mayor, that was the only speaker card that I have for this item.
Looking for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, this is a public hearing that you need to open up.
So you could officially open the hearing. I was going to say, officially open the hearing. Since there are no speakers, you can also close the hearing, but you need to open it officially.
Oh. Would you like to open this public hearing? Are there any speakers?
There are not. So you can close the hearing.
Having no speakers, public hearing is closed. Looking for a motion to adopt ordinance 1839.
I'd like to make a motion to waive the first reading and introduce by title only ordinance number 1839, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Oroville, adding chapter 5.06 to the Oroville Municipal Code establishing the downtown Oroville Business Improvement District.
I'll second that.
Motion carries.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Mr. Kilborn and Mr. Tracy. Oh, well, we have one more round, actually.
Congratulations to a whole lot of people. And thank you for ending 30 years of waiting for it.
Thank you for all your work, Mr. Tracy. At this time, we're going to open up to public communication. Is there anyone who would like to speak on non-agenda items?
Mr. Mayor, I have a list here. I have our first speaker as Bobby O'Reilly, and then Major Larry Feist, and then Marlene Del Rosario.
Good evening, council. It's a beautiful day, wonderful weather. I'd like to be the first tonight to say happy birthday to our mayor, Mayor Reynolds.
Thank you.
Happy birthday. I would also like to just bring notice that some are aware, some are not, that the recall for the intent for recall of 2 council members has been halted. It has been put on pause. I would like to mention that this will save the city $30,000 to $60,000 in doing so, in holding off on this process. And I just ask that the 2 council members please finish their terms in the best way possible, doing the best that they can to represent our city in the positive forward motion. Yeah, there's a minute left. In the positive forward motion, to the best of your abilities. It is my sincere hope that that can be accomplished with no further disruptions to our city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Major Larry Feist, and then Marlene Del Rosario.
Mayor Reynolds and council, we are grateful that you have proclaimed next week as Salvation Army Week. We are also grateful for the support of this wonderful community that we have. And we are going to share some exciting news that most of us already know. You all know that in the disaster, the Salvation Army provides food for people at the shelter. And sometimes there's a delay in, we don't have a unit here, so therefore we have to wait from either Chico or Sacramento or Redding. Well, thanks to the generosity of the people of Oroville, and especially to a super sponsor, Cal Water, we have purchased a new truck and a fully equipped kitchen to help us in that, and a truck to pull it. It will be stationed here in Oroville. Even though it's stationed here, it can be used in other disasters. It can be called to, but it will be made available, excuse me, for training exercises with law enforcement, fire, search and rescue, etc. The new truck and trailer will make its debut this Saturday in the Fiesta Day Parade. And we would like to invite all of you, as well as the community, to a ribbon cutting ceremony. Can't talk. On May 20th, the final day of National Salvation Army Week, at our location, 1640 Washington Avenue, from 5:30 to 7 o'clock, to enjoy some food and fellowship. I think it's a great thing for our community. As you know, the Salvation Army, also there's going to be changes in the Salvation Army. From time to time, the Salvation Army moves its personnel, and unfortunately, Captain Julie and I have received farewell orders. We are going to be leaving.
Time.
we received an assignment to go to Longview, Washington, where we are being promoted, and we are being replaced by Lieutenants Michael and Angelina Dominguez, and they're going to pick up where we've stopped. So thank you very much for your support.
Thank you, Larry.
Mayor, council members, thank you. I wanted to speak tonight on the petition to recall that was circulated. I realize that Mr. O'Reilly has withdrawn the petition, but there was a particular sentence that bothered me. He said, Member Draper or Member Goodson has also engaged in voted on illegal discussion during closed session. And I'm wondering who is discussing things with Mr. O'Reilly about closed session. Having served on this body, I realize that closed session is confidential, though that information cannot be shared with the public. I'm wondering, is the DA investigating this as a Brown Act violation? This should be brought to his attention. This is in writing. Engaged in and voted on illegal discussion during closed session. I also noted that members of this council have signed that petition, and that certainly does not go along with the mayor's request that there be cooperation and agreement with the council. So I'm hoping that this will be brought to the attention of the district attorney. Thank you.
Randy Murphy, Billy Spear, and then the cameraman.
Good evening and happy birthday, Mr. Mayor. And good evening to the rest of the council. I'm here to make a couple of announcements. One, a reminder that the district is still looking for a director. That position, the letter of interest should be addressed to me at the district address, not later than then 2 weeks from tomorrow. And then the meeting on May 28th will be when the decision is made by that board. I also wanted to confirm, those of you who may have heard, I am leaving the community and I have a job offer in Lake County. So we are now looking for a GM. So Mr. Lando, or anybody else who might be interested, we are accepting applications and we'd like to get that transition made as soon as possible. So my heart is still here, but you know, as they said in the Godfather, they made me an offer I couldn't refuse. So,
Thank you.
I'll be here through the end of the month.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you, Randy.
Bill Spear.
Mr. Mayor, happy birthday, City Council, Vice Mayor. Honored to be here tonight, and was kind of taken back with the report from PG&E and kind of scary stuff. We have a lot of challenges in our future, and God has assembled a good team of people to handle it. I really set back a little by Major Larry leaving and also with Mr. Murphy. But anyways, I just come here to pray for wisdom and for God's guidance through these times that we got, these challenges that we got coming up. So Father, I thank you for our mayor. We pray blessings upon him and on his birthday with his family as he comes in to serve you, and for all our public servants, Lord, we pray, Father, for them and for their families, and for Major Larry and his family as they leave. And Lord, we thank you for all that they've sowed into our community. And Mr. Murphy, we thank you for all of the people of our city, our police chief and our fire department, and we continue to lift up the public servants. Your word says the greatest of all will be the servant of all. So we are truly grateful and thankful, and we pray that you would bless PG&E and help them to, we pray for the weather, that wouldn't have the red flag warnings, that you would help give them supernatural progress in getting the grid safe and stable for your people. We pray that we would be ready in the physical, but we trust you, Lord, that you who begin this work, that you're going to see it through. We trust you for our city and for our families. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
The cameraman.
Thank you.
Good evening, Oroville City Council. Happy birthday, Mr. Mayor. I'm the cameraman. I'm a First Amendment and community advocate. Let me first get this out of the way. I don't give my name out at public meetings for two reasons. The cameraman is my username on YouTube, and that's how you can look me up and watch my videos. And two, as a previous public speaker from Orange County, I've personally witnessed and experienced retaliation for speaking out on public issues. Speaker card information is voluntary, and filling out one is not required to attend or speak at a public meeting. Now for my main topic tonight, and that is the street name signs that hang from the lights at the intersection of Grand and Table Mountain Boulevard. If you haven't noticed recently, when you drive through that intersection, the street name signs that hang are very faded and cannot be read when you drive through that intersection. Now, excuse me here, lost my track. Now, if you know where you're going, this is not an issue. But if you're not familiar with this area, this could create an issue and cause confusion if drivers don't know where they are. Another safety issue is the stop sign for the traffic traveling westbound on High Street and Viat Street, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. There is overgrowth from that tree obstructing the view of that stop sign until you're coming up close upon it. Now you may be asking, why are you speaking about this and not calling in and reporting it? Because this should have been handled by basic preventive maintenance practices, and it should not take a citizen to report an issue that slowly takes time to develop. The paint on the street signs did not fade overnight, and neither did that tree fully grow in one day. Preventive maintenance goes a long way, and the recent influx of people due to the displacement from the recent fire, I think it's especially important to make sure people unfamiliar with the area are able to see our street signs clearly and read them as a matter of public safety. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Grayson Reynolds is our last public speaker.
Good evening. I don't know if this is against the rules, but I'm just going to sing a quick song to lighten up the mood a bit. I welcome everyone to join me. So,
happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Mayor Reynolds. Happy birthday to you. Nice.
I also want to encourage you to use your newly available senior discount.
Nice.
I want to thank my son for that, and for those of you that don't know, he has joined the Navy and is shipping out. So, thank you, son. Okay. Moving on to the consent calendar, looking to adopt the consent calendar. Is there anyone who wishes to have any items pulled?
I'd like item 2 pulled, please.
Looking for a motion to adopt the consent calendar, pulling item number 2.
I move that we approve the consent calendar, except for item 2, which will be pulled.
Pardon me, could we also pull number 5? Just forgot that.
Anyone else?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the consent calendar, except pulling and number 2 and number 5.
I'll second that.
Motion carries.
Item number 2, Counselor Goodson, would you like to comment on why you pulled that
Yes,
item?
thank you. Candidly speaking, I'm just not comfortable voting on an agenda item that is in regards to an unanticipated revenue. Council may consider and approve unanticipated revenue. This may or may not be the accurate projected and anticipated revenue in the range of $650,000 to $712,000 for the fiscal year of 2018 and 19. I believe that a more accurate assessment will be and would be made more clear and become more tangible in early 2020. And that is my reason that I will not be in affirmation of this agenda item.
Tom?
Sure. I understand the comment. This is just an acknowledgement that when the budget was put together, we did not know that the sales tax measure would be passed, since the budget's adopted for July 1 through June 30th. So this is just recognizing that there's unanticipated revenue because the sales tax increase started April 1st. And we're just letting you know that, that's all. Council would then get to allocate that in the future as we look at the budget, as would the Oversight Committee. It's just an acknowledgement.
Thank you. Were there any other comments? Anyone wish to speak on this item? Madam Clerk?
I do not have any public speakers on this item.
Looking for a motion to,
I got actually a question. What's the benefit of acknowledging these funds? From my understanding, it's not necessarily, how do I say this? We have taxes that come in continually, and so an added 1% of what's been coming in isn't that technical to try to figure out, from my understanding. But what is the benefit as far as acknowledging that? Is it so we could potentially spend it or allocate it or put it aside or whatnot?
Well, it's to let you know that it wasn't budgeted for and that we expect to receive it. And so it's pretty much information only. Maybe I should have put that on the staff report, information only.
thank you. It's on the agenda now, so looking for a motion for item number 2 of the consent calendar.
Well, I would move item number 2 as agenda-sized. Just that simple.
A second.
Motion carries.
Okay, item number 5, Councilperson Draper, would you care to comment on why you had the item pulled?
Yeah, this says it's going to be almost $95,000 for some audio and video upgrade. And I just have some concerns about spending almost $100,000 on something like that. Is this really a need or is this a want?
Well,
wondering.
I guess I could comment on that. We have funds that have to be spent on enhancing the public's ability to participate or hear in meetings with audio and video. So it has to be spent on those upgrades.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I realize that it's in that category, but it just seems like a lot of money for some, what looks like minor upgrades. It's $100,000. So I'm just wondering, is all of that really necessary for improvement of audio and visual?
Bill, do you want to comment on this?
I think Tyson could probably speak more to the
Thank
technical
you.
part of this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, so a lot of the money is, it seems like a lot. But with the changes of technology over the last few years, they've got to pull out a lot of the existing and put in the new stuff. And so there's a lot of labor that's in this. But also, you know, as you can tell, even like your microphone mute buttons don't work quite as well. So we're going to need to replace all of those. Some new functionality, even speakers outside, they're going to have to be cutting through some of the building to get those mounted correctly. And so there's extra pieces to it. And the gear that's running all this behind the scenes, the automation, they kind of have the market when it comes to working well. Crestron is the name of a very robust, bulletproof system, and it's done that for us. But 5 to 7 years is kind of the life of most electronic gear. And so when you replace that, you're talking a little bit more money as well as programming of that to do all the functionalities when the screens turn to do the voting, or audio zones to make different places work the way that they do.
I believe there's some construction involved as well that'll be at prevailing wage, which is really expensive.
Okay.
Councilperson Draper, if I could just add, we've experienced some issues lately with the video just randomly deciding to shut off, so we're only capturing part of the videos and things like that. The equipment's about 8 years old, 9 years old at this point from when we remodeled it, and it's just become very old for electronics. I know that's not very old. Well, I think that's all I have to say.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Tyson. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I have a question.
I got a full queue here. Here we go. Councilmember Pittman.
Yeah, I share the thought pattern here of spending this sticker shock and dollar amount, but I also realize that government has funds that are dedicated to certain activities. And I'm okay with that, I guess, in some respect, but at the same time, I'd sure like to see the men's bathroom fixtures fixed. They've been that way for 10 years, and they don't work in this building. So it's hard to do this and look at that. You know, that's just my little personal thing about getting things fixed around here. I would like...
If we put a speaker in there, we could do that.
I'm told that things don't run uphill in there, so whatever the case may be. But it's been that way for better part of 10 years that I know of. So anyway, could I get a little explanation of the PEG fund? Just a description of it.
Councilman Pittman, PEG stands for your public educational and governmental use funding. It comes from off of your cable bills and things like that. A little bit is collected each month from each user. This money is mandated by the state for the cities and municipalities, local county governments, to increase the public's access to public meetings, to promote transparency. This new system will also assist with that. The queue situation that we just had a moment ago, it's going to be available for everybody to see. So when you push your button as a council member, you're going to go into the queue. Everyone will be able to see that, you know, you are wishing to comment on this. So it helps promote that transparency. It's monies we get. We cannot spend for anything other than that specific purpose.
I understand. When I go to the lab to get blood tests done, they have that thing on the TV and tells me when I'm going to be serviced, you know. So I understand the need for technology, and I agree. It's a little sticker shock.
It is.
I mean, it is. It just simply is. But it is funding that we have to put in this category. So at the same time, I'd like to look for some funding for City Hall one day, find something there.
We'll do that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Vice Mayor Thompson, please.
I think I'm just kind of echoing the concerns of both Councilmember Draper and Pittman when close to $100,000 for video when there's other needs. It just seems really shocking. So I think you answered my question in regards to that this money has to be spent on our technology.
Yes, it's transparency and for access, public access.
Maybe we should have transparency and public access in the bathroom so we can get that fixed.
It's coming. Councilmember Smith, please.
Yeah, not to diminish the importance of porcelain, but who's going to control the mute button? That's all I want to know.
Councilmember Goodson, please.
Ruth, this question is for you approximately. What is the balance in the IT budget?
$150,000
And that's before or after?
before.
My next question, it's my understanding that in the staff report, it says that the final reason is that the TriPath Technology Group is that they are located in Butte County, so that's a plus. And the plus is that the upgrade will be staying local. So that's a broad usage for me of the term local, because when I think of local, I think of Oroville, not continuing to better the coffers of Chico. But that's just my pet peeve. And then I have another question. Is this system also being used throughout all of the government entities that we know of?
Whoever is here and utilizing this room can utilize the system.
So,
what you're asking?
so what I'm asking is it going to be compatible in the event that, because we do have partnerships with the county as well, and so will those intercom communication devices we will be able to connect without any barriers, glitches in the system?
So you're talking about connecting our room here to their room? Is that, or just when they come here?
I mean, no.
Okay.
I'm saying
In general?
Right.
So all of this
Commingling,
is.
yes.
Okay, all of this is for this room specifically?
Specifically.
Yes, and now, part of that is also for the streaming media as well, so it is something that branches out.
It does branch out, okay.
So you can be in another location and be watching what's happening here, so you can be doing kind of a WebEx kind of situation to another building.
All right.
Councilmember Draper, or I'm sorry, Goodson, if I could just clarify the IT budget question that you asked. That is a PEG fund, fee fund budget. It's a standalone. It's not part of the IT department. So that is a separate budget from the IT. I just want to just be real clear on that.
Is that a branch of the IT budget? Is it for enhancement?
It is a standalone funding source that is specifically for this type of a project. It's not part of your regular part that the council would allocate for IT issues throughout the city.
So
This
my
is completely
Okay.
separate.
Thank you. So my next question is, where do we get that funding source?
That comes, it's collected through the PUC or through your cable bills and things like, there's a small portion on there. I think it's like a nickel a month, I think, something like that they gather, and then it's distributed to local municipalities and county governments.
Comcast. Thank you.
Thanks.
Looking for a motion for item number 5 on the consent calendar.
I'll make a motion that we authorize the upgrade of the council chambers audio and video system by TriPath Technology Group in the amount of $94,619.85.
I second that.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tyson. Okay, moving on to public hearings. Like to reopen the public hearing. And we have item number 9 to amend chapter 9.08 of the Oroville Municipal Code entitled the Nuisance Code.
And we're deferring to Mr. Huber on this one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. As many of you know, the nuisance code was updated as an urgency ordinance. That gives a couple of benefits to the city. Number one, it takes immediate effect. One of the downsides of that, though, is unless it's extended by urgency ordinance as well, the initial urgency ordinance is valid for a fixed period of time of 45 days unless it's extended. This gives municipalities the opportunity to then go back and adopt an ordinance to have longer lasting effect, which is what we are doing at this point in time. This code is to enable this modification or this amendment will enable code enforcement to go into blighted properties that are deemed to be a public hazard or a public health and safety problem, whether it's from a hazard that exists on the property, whether it's from vermin, refuse, serious code violations that are an immediate danger to either the occupants of that property or the neighbors surrounding that property. These are not what I will call your garden variety, code issues where a fence may have fallen down or some other minor issue. These are for serious problems. This gives the code enforcement officers in the city a lot of tools in their tool belt, so to speak, to deal with blighted and substandard and rundown properties, up to and including immediate abatement. There was distributed on the dais, and I've got a copy if anybody wants to see it, but there was one amendment that was made and that was requested on Article 3, Section 9.08.120, for abatement of dangerous and substandard buildings and structures. It adds in the fire chief and fire marshal as well as a building official. So if a building is an immediate fire hazard, then the fire marshal can declare that, not just the building official. It opens up the scope a little bit to other individuals, to declare an immediate nuisance. Again, this is what is currently in effect and has been for the last, 30 days or so. Staff has been able to abate several properties utilizing this code. It is, to use the vernacular, it's very handy. It does give some pretty good tools to code enforcement to abate substandard, blighted, and properties that are a health and human concern.
Thank you, Mr. Huber. Are there any, okay, Councilmember Pittman?
Yeah, I appreciate the addition added. We, in fact, in this city had, by adding the fire chief and fire marshal positions, there are some interesting powers the fire chief has in declaring a building not suitable for human habitat. And when we, back in July of '06, we had to empty the Oroville Inn. And that was heavily mitigated and litigated over 3 years. And the particular position of the fire chief's call did prevail in that situation, so.
Yeah, and I'll make a note since you brought up the Oroville Inn. The Oroville Inn was done under the old code.
Right.
And it is what it is, but the old code required numerous hearings and findings of fact and determinations to be made by the council, right. Which you just don't. It just doesn't. It doesn't occur in most cities. This is something that needed to be done, and is good that the council adopted it as an urgency ordinance, and hopefully we'll adopt this to keep it in place.
And I'll add, in that particular case, we had to have 970 violations listed, cited, and on and on and on. And I appreciate this update of the code. Make it cleaner, more useful, and a true tool to the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any public comments on this item?
Mr. Mayor, I do not have any blue cards for this item.
Looking for a motion to adopt an ordinance to amend Chapter 9.08.
Mr. Mayor, you need to open and close your public hearing.
Excuse me.
You already opened it.
I already opened it, right?
So you can just close it.
close the public hearing.
I move that we waive the first reading and introduce by title only ordinance number 1838.
I'll second that.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to regular business. Item number 11, Street Department Tractor Loader Replacement.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. What you have before you tonight to consider is a replacement of a piece of heavy equipment at the corporation yard. This is a picture of not our tractor, but a tractor that is the same as ours. It's I went to look for ours today and it wasn't down there, so we may have to replace it sooner than what we thought. But I think it's on a job somewhere, obviously. But this is what it looked like. I want to make sure everybody understands what we're talking about. This is a large piece of equipment that's used for scooping dirt, debris, things like that. It's used a lot in code enforcement activities. The front bucket is a clamshell type bucket that opens and closes to grab things. And this tractor is unique to itself that it actually, in the middle, it'll bend and bow to get into different locations that other pieces of equipment may not. This piece of equipment is about a $170,000 piece of equipment. It is, I believe, 27 years old, has a lot of age on it. It is in need now of updating in order for it to meet the air quality standards to continue to use it. The trade-in value of this piece of equipment that we have is about $14,000. The upgrade for the air quality equipment that's necessary to keep this on the road after January of 2020 is going to be about $12,000. So you're making a $12,000 investment in a $14,000 piece of equipment. It's I guess if you were in a situation where you had no other choice, it would be the thing you had to do, but you do have choices. This year we received notice from the state that through the SB1 dollars that we had an additional $90,000 that we had to spend in the streets department. So what we did is we've taken that money, applied it toward the purchase of this piece of equipment, $90,000 from there. We took another $50,000, roughly $52,000 from the sewer department, and then we took $17,000 from the Thermalito drainage impact and $17,000 from the general drainage impact to the city. Now the reason why we did that from these particular funds is because of each one of those particular impacts, or the sewer department and the streets department all use this. We have not in the past adequately tracked how much each one uses it. So, but we believe that the sewer department is probably the second heaviest use of this piece of equipment. So we approached that one at 30% of the cost and applied that toward the cost of this. Now you do have options. You don't have to purchase this way. You don't have to purchase it at all. I mean, you're the governing body. If you choose to purchase it, you can do none of this. You can instruct us to go back and find an alternate financing source for this, which there is financing out there available. I believe the quote we got was if we were to put the $90,000 down on this and then finance the balance, that it was, I believe, 5.9% interest, Ruth? Same, 4.55%, which equated to about $9,000, I believe, over the course of 5 years if you wanted to finance it. You have in these particular funds that we have identified, the $90,000 is from the state in the SB1 dollars. In the Thermalito Drainage Impact Fund, there's approximately $509,000. In the general impact, or the General Drainage Impact Fund, there's $877,000. And in the sewer fund, there's about $8,582,000. I don't like to use the sewer fund, honestly, for anything other than very specific sewer projects, because that is money that's collected for that specific purpose. So we try to stay away from that. However, this piece of equipment is heavily used there. So what we're going to do moving into the future, so we don't put another council into a situation like this, is we've established essentially a rental price for these pieces of equipment. What we're going to do is we track time over the life of this piece of equipment, or any piece of equipment that we have now, our backhoes, our dump trucks, our loader. We're going to bill those back to each one of these departments. If you use the loader, hypothetically, for 3 hours, The billing rate put out by Caltrans for that particular piece of equipment is $50.31 per hour. So we will track that. That money will be deducted from either the drainage impact fee, the sewer fund, whichever department is utilizing that, and it will be placed into an equipment replacement fund. That way, as these things wear out over the years, it's not going to have to be a struggle to look around and try to put together money or make a decision whether you're financing or just go without. So that's what we're going to do to move into the future to ensure that we don't end up in this same type of a situation again. So what we're looking for tonight is direction from the council or authorization to make this purchase.
I do have one clarification to make. Bill said the 90,000 was coming from SB1 money. It is not. It's coming from the general fund in order to get the SB1 money for the next year. They don't want us to supplant our general fund with the SB1 money, so they're making us pay. They're making us expend an average of 3 years, and we were short last year. It's coming from the general fund.
And how much SB1 money do we get?
We're expected to get over 300,000.
So to get that, we need to allocate this 90,000.
Out of
just
the
so
general
that's clear.
fund.
Out of the general fund. And I would also say that we don't earn 4.55% on our money, so that if we have the cash, it's better to spend it on this rather than finance it.
Councilmember Pittman.
Yeah, I totally agree with this. I remember when the original piece of equipment came here, and it's been used by everyone. This city wears out its equipment very well, and for 20 years plus on a loader like that, it's time to replace. And let's get a new one.
Vice Mayor Thompson.
What'll be done with the old one?
It's going to actually be traded in, and then the company that it'll be traded to will actually ship this out of state, because in other states you can continue to use this equipment. Just in California, our air quality restrictions don't allow us to do that. But we are not shipping it. We are trading it into the local cat dealer, and then it's their responsibility to get it wherever it's going to go.
Is it? I would think there would be some companies local that might be interested in.
Can't use
No,
They can't operate it.
Can't operate
The
The $12,000 investment, so you're looking at $26,000 for.
yeah, they would have to. If we sold it for 14, they'd have to drop another 12 into it. So you're looking at 26,000.
And Air Resources Board is going to follow where that machine goes.
And if I may, there's a lot more wrong with it than just being outdated because of emissions. On the South Oroville cleanup, this is our main piece of equipment, and we had to delay a couple of abatements because this equipment had broken down. So there's a lot more wrong. It's 27 years old. I think we got our money's worth out of it.
Good.
Great.
Councilmember Goodson?
Chuck, you're absolutely right. I recall the cleanup of El Noble and Mesa. The reason for the delay because there was a malfunction in this piece of equipment. It is antiquated. Ruth, I think this question is for you. The 300,000 from the SBF, when do we anticipate that money coming in?
The SB1 money comes
Yes,
in
SB1.
on a monthly basis from the state.
I'm sorry, say that again.
On a monthly basis from the state.
In monetary increments of?
It's random. It's not a fixed amount.
Just a ballpark, please.
300,000 divided by 12, Bill?
25,000 to 30,000 a month, depending on.
Thank you.
Typically, you would budget projects, and we would allocate that 300,000.
Yeah, the SB1 money has all been allocated by the engineer, the city engineer,
So,
road projects.
So what you're saying is in order to expedite the purchase of this, we're going to have to tap into our general fund money.
We have to spend this out of the general fund, and I'm really concerned about meeting our quota again this year because we've had several vacancies in that department, and I don't think we're going to spend enough again this year. We're going to have to really watch it. So I really think that's important that we make sure we spend that money this year.
Thank you.
It's one of the hardest things to get used to going from private to government is you have to spend money and you have to spend it on certain things. So I'm trying to get used to it too.
In this case, the reason for it is they have something called a maintenance of effort. What they don't want you to do is, you've been spending this money on roads, they don't want you to spend less than you were spending before. And clearly, every city, but Oroville as well, needs to repair its roads and alleys, and that's what this money's intended for.
Sure.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith?
Yeah, I just want to applaud you on being clever and putting this together. And deferred maintenance, as we all know, ends up costing us a whole lot more in the long run. So I'm certainly 100% for this. The only question I do have is, that tractor's bigger than mine? Do I get to drive it when we get it?
Well, I can answer that
For
really.
$50 an hour.
The answer is no, they don't let me drive it, so.
I would say in the budget, the other thing we'd like to do, maybe not in this year's budget, but we'd like to establish an equipment replacement fund. If we're financially solvent, which the city's obviously moving towards, the logical policy is when a fire engine, for example, needs to be replaced, you have the money in a fund to buy that engine. You don't make it go an extra 10 years and potentially break down. And hopefully we'll be in a position to do that.
Well, and I would ask that in the budget process or Public Works.
Councilmember Pittman?
Yeah, sorry. I would ask that the Public Works have a brief inventory of the equipment age, purpose, use, and conditions so that we can consider those things that are necessary, because you can't get the job done if you don't have good tools.
We're actually one step ahead of you. We spent days making an asset list on just the vehicles. I would like to do it again for equipment, but I worked on a vehicle replacement plan, and I worked with our mechanic, and he helped me with the estimated useful lives.
Good.
And we've already have this worksheet, and the cost to replace all of our equipment to catch up is $696,000 a year in order to replace all of our equipment over 10 years. I think maybe we could stretch out over 15, but anyway, we're already on it.
Good.
Sounds like you're a lot more than one step ahead of us, Ruth. Thank you. Are there any public comments?
Mr. Mayor, I do not have any speakers for this item.
Okay, so is that it, Chief? Looking for a motion.
Make a motion that we approve the purchase of the new tractor and loader utilizing the pricing from Sourcewell contract number 032515-CAT.
I second that.
Motion carries.
Item number 12.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council again. This is an item to contract with Bureau Veritas. They are a planning and building consulting firm. They are out of Santa Rosa is where we're getting our building consultant from right now. He is here tonight. This is Leo DePaula. He is somebody who's been with us for a couple days now to begin to help us take care of any issues that we have that exist within our building and planning. The big problem that we've had for a long time is we have not had a planner. Ever since our last planner left to take employment in Shasta County, we've been kind of going without. Gary stood in and did a good job for us as long as he could, and but it becomes overwhelming. So what we've done is we've reached out. We did have another planning consultant that you probably do remember. We tried them for a little bit. They didn't work for us. They didn't want to work the way that we wanted to work. They wanted to do things their way. What I mean by that is that they wanted to be here, be paid, but then anything extra we had, they wanted to charge us extra for. So that just didn't work for us. So we kind of backed away from that contract. We will not be utilizing them in the future.
Not just extra, Bill. I think it's important, the scope of extra. So we asked them to help with a negative declaration, one of which Gary prepared in-house, and they wanted $30,000 to do it. And we said, no, thank you.
So it was, we just couldn't see coming back to the council every month asking for an additional $30,000 for projects that have come in. We have been in contact with Bureau Veritas, and they are willing to do the work on a daily basis, have somebody here 3 days a week as a planner, and also handle those things as they come in. It's not an additional cost on top of that. It's the hourly rate that was provided the council to do that. What you have in front of you is a request for $54,000 for this fiscal year. That's to June 30th. That's worst case scenario. That would be Leo being here 3 days a week, 8 hours a day. That would also be the planner being here 3 days a week, 8 hours a day. What we're going to do at first is have Leo come in, assess what he believes that the needs are, have the planner come in, tell us what he believes that the needs are of the city, and then we'll probably back away from that. I'm not sure we have 3 days of work right now for a planner, and I'm not sure we have 3 days of work for Leo, because we still have Gary here too working. So we have that going for us. So I wanted to give you a worst case scenario picture of what this may cost you. So what we're looking for tonight is authorization to enter into this contract with this planning and consulting firm, so that we have a community development consultant here that is going to oversee the entire department, and then we're also going to have a planner here 3 days a week to answer the questions the public have as they come in, also to provide training for our front counter staff and our backside support, so that when people come in and they ask questions, they can get clear answers, they can get immediate answers, and be able to assist the public better. So that is what we're looking for.
And to add to that, we did provide you with the background information on the firm, and also have check references on the firm.
Thank you. I'd like to take a moment to thank Gary for holding down the fort, and he's worn many hats for a long time, and absolutely amazing. So really thankful to see Relief is here. We're moving forward. Absolutely wonderful. I'd just like to talk to Leo about this name of his business, because I can't pronounce it. Would you like to speak, Leo?
Sure. Mayor, council, first off, we appreciate the opportunity to propose for the project. It's Bureau Veritas. It's actually a fairly large worldwide firm. We're both the United States and Europe. We're about 75,000 employees in 148 countries. This is one arm of what we do. Currently, I run the operation from the Golden Gate Bridge to the Oregon border. Most of my time right now has been spent in Santa Rosa. We have the contract to do the fire rebuild for the Tubbs fire for the city of Santa Rosa that we're currently working on down there. Additionally, I'm from Chico. I live up here, and so this is when we were talking about it, and I'm really excited about that, and actually be able to work in the community. So we provide all different building services. Here the scope is to assist with the community development department, as well as the planning. Get with Gary. I've known Gary for quite a while as well, and just do an assessment to see what's truly needed, and then we just modify based on what the needs are of the city, and we discuss them, and you guys are able to adjust the scope as needed to provide the services you feel are appropriate at that time.
Great, thank you. We have a couple council members that have questions. Councilmember Pittman.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I've been looking forward to this. And frankly, I hope you got your running shoes on, because you're probably going to need them around this town. One of the things that is difficult for this town, and I've tossed this idea around, is we have 3 water agencies, 3 sewer collection agencies, 1 sewer facility, I don't know how many school districts, and so on and so forth. And I know that it repeats itself in other communities, but to me, it's difficult for the investor to walk in the front door of City Hall and only have city information. It's almost to me like we need an investor's desk, so when they walk in, at least we can provide them by their address what they're planning on doing, and then we give them who they need to contact. If you catch what I'm trying to gather, because I hate to have an investor come in the door and say, oh, you need to go talk to that water company, or you got to go talk to that sewer agency. I'd rather we be able to answer those investor questions when they walk in the door.
Councilmember Pittman, I don't want to interrupt you, but I went in and introduced myself to Leo, and that was the first part of our conversation. And he said, here they are right here. And he already had those lists made out. And I was very impressed. He's already got a whole system in place that covers our ideas.
And that's
it's
that's
just
fantastic. And
absolutely amazing.
I much appreciate that, and it's great to hear that because it's always a difficulty, and mostly the people that can answer the question are gray hair up here that been around this town or were raised here, because every town's different, and I really appreciate the fact that you've got that addressed and going down the line, because nothing worse for me to see an investor walk in the door and walk out the door and not have answers. And
No,
that
I
would be,
I totally agree with you, and really, we're just getting in the door, but
Yeah.
it's really trying to get with staff and understand what the need is we don't come in and say, here's how we do what we do. We try to evaluate and talk with staff, and they let us know where the needs really are, and we try
Good.
to come in and fill those holes, so, but I appreciate that, and thank you
good to
very
hear,
much.
thank you, sir.
Absolutely amazing. And I just feel that a new project, I know that when I start a new project, I'm excited about it. Everyone's excited. And that's the way it should be. You're creating something new. You're creating. And you should feel excited, not frustrated and discouraged. And I'm just really thankful that we're able to move forward. Councilmember Goodson?
Well, Ruth, this is a question for you. I was just, I don't like to assume anything. The funding source for this 54,000, what is that specific account?
Basically, it's coming from your prior year surplus. It's just going to come from available fund balance. It's not been budgeted, so there isn't a budget item for it, so we'll have to take from our fund balance. So anything that's left over from our surplus in the prior year, we'll just reduce our fund balance.
Thank you.
No other questions from the dais? Do we have any speakers on this item, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, I do not have any blue cards for this item.
If I could just add one piece of clarity on this, Leo and I are not related, but if we were, he'd be my little brother.
Yeah. That's amazing because the resemblance is uncanny. Okay, looking for a motion on item number 12.
I make a motion that we adopt resolution number 8780, resolution with the Oroville City Council authorizing and directing the mayor to execute an agreement with Bureau Veritas North America, Inc. for a contract community development consultant and contract planning services in amount not to exceed $54,000.
I'll
I'll
second.
second it.
There's always a fight over motions
He's
and
fast.
seconds.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Leo. Welcome aboard.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gary.
Yeah.
If I could add something, I've had a lot of experience with Leo because he was over in Chico for a while. And I will tell you that he really facilitated, in an appropriate way, development in the community. It's really good to have him on board.
Good.
Okay, moving on to reports and discussions. Any announcements from the council? Oh, sorry, Councilmember Goodson.
I believe it was a Wednesday or Thursday, April 24th, and I had the opportunity to go down to Sacramento, and it was a legislative action day. There were several guest speakers, and this was in regards to the housing crisis, which so many of our cities face, especially our Butte and surrounding areas due to the Camp Fire. But Councilwoman Draper and I went down. We had the opportunity to hear what some of the other cities are doing in regards to their lack of senior housing, affordable housing, and just some of their out-of-the-box thinking. The keynote speaker was the mayor of Fontana, doing great things. It is one of the fourth largest growing cities in California. On April 26th, I attended the Chevis King dinner. It was held at the Southside Center, and there were approximately 250 guests. It was great food, great entertainment, and speakers. And on April 25th, I attended and spoke at the Planning Commission meeting as well. And that is all.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith.
So on May 3rd, I had an opportunity to make a presentation to ORAC. ORAC is an acronym for Oroville Recreation Advisory Committee. And this was formed in 2006 as a part of the settlement agreement, all things concerning DWR. You've probably heard that acronym a time or two. And in that presentation, I talked about just all the amazing pieces that we have as a community, all the wonderful assets that we have in conjunction with the river. We have a beautiful visitor center up there by the lake. And we have, of course, a salmon fish hatchery here, and just all these wonderful assets that are here. And I made the point to them that we need to leverage that as a community. Going back a little bit in some history, there was a sales pitch given about our community and reaching out beyond the borders of Oroville to get businesses and developers to come here. And there was a big sell on the water. But people want more than water. They want good schools. They want affordable housing, all those pieces that go into that. And so as I was looking at that committee of ORAC members, which are made up of Fish and Game, Water Resource, of course, DWR, Parks Department, and in a whole variety of various committees of people that live here in Oroville. And I challenged them with this, that we have to engage the kids. What do I mean by that? The Fish and Game Department was complaining about all the dumping at the wildlife area. There's a lot of dumping. Have you all seen dumping? We all observe that. And I said, what we need to do is we need to get community buy-in. If our kids have a sense of ownership of community, which means engaging the kids, engaging them in the schools, Department of Fish and Game, DWR, our biologists going into our schools and doing seminars and really engaging the kiddos, that they'll have ownership of our community. Wouldn't it be great if a Las Plumas kid became the next biologist for DWR? Wouldn't it be great if the next kid out of Oroville High became the new Fish and Game warden? And so I just want to challenge our community that we need to start selling ourselves. We have wonderful assets here that have been given to us, and we have just a rich history, an amazing place that we live in. And so it's just I'm actually obligated to give a speech to ORAC twice a year. And so that was just my opportunity to engage the folks. That being said, Las Plumas Oroville Alliance Band is headed to Carnegie Hall, April 2020. According to band director Michael Walker. The honor came after the band won first place in its division and top overall band at the recent Seattle Heritage Music Festival. They need to raise $100,000 to get to New York. We need to make sure our kids get to New York to have the opportunity to play before in Carnegie Hall. Just amazing. And so I just want to give a shout out to our school and to our band director. Good job. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, could I interrupt for just a moment? Many of you know I sit as a school board member for the school district where I live, and one of the schools in my school district went to Carnegie Hall to perform, and so I want to make a commitment right now. My wife and I went. We had never been to New York. We went to go watch them. Of course, we spent a few days there. I will give, if they haven't raised anything yet, my firm will give the first $500 to get them to Carnegie Hall.
Awesome.
And give me the contact information, but it is a phenomenal experience to hear high school kids play in Carnegie Hall. The acoustics are great, the setting is great, but it is something they will never forget.
Yeah.
So if you'll let me know, our firm
Sure,
would like
absolutely.
to donate $500
Yeah,
towards
great.
that.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. And, I just want to say, I sat on the school board as a trustee member here in Oroville. And one of the things I heard from our kids over and over again is, I can't wait to get out of Oroville. And but when you travel and you realize, hey, Oroville's a pretty amazing place, pretty cool. I just wanted to add that.
Thank you. And I'd like to add that you've inspired me, Mr. Huber. The Reynolds family will give $500 to match yours. So thank you. Councilmember Draper.
I attended the housing crisis meeting that was through the League of California Cities, pardon me, on April 24th. And it was really an enlightening 2 hours. The panel had Jovan Agee, the Deputy Treasurer for Housing and Economic Development for the state of California, Mia Kang, Senior Vice President of Related California, LLC, and this amazing mayor, Aquanetta Warren, the mayor of Fontana. And the special guest presenter was this woman, Josie Gonzalez, who is the supervisor for the 5th District for the County of San Bernardino. And I'm talking about a human dynamo. This lady is something else. And she had suggestions on things that cities can do to make up for the loss of RDA money. I mean, it was really interesting. Janet and I were just really riveted to what these people were saying. And the whole point of the thing was about the housing crisis in California, that it's exorbitant. People can't afford to rent or buy a lot of times. And we know that that's especially true in Butte County with the influx of all the people that were displaced by the Camp Fire. So it was a really helpful thing, and we really enjoyed it. I also attended the Chavez King dinner on April 26th, and I also attended the recent Planning Commission meeting where I spoke as well.
Councilmember Pittman.
Yeah, I'm not trying to digress the conversation, but in terms of housing, one of our critical issues is going to be the capacity of the sewage commission, the plant. And the plant, as I said on that board, is working on expanding capacity. But one of the concerns I saw in a recent report was the I&I issue for the city of Oroville seems to be creeping back up again. So if we have data or information about that particular thing, if we can reduce our I&I, that's the quickest way to gain capacity. And if our public works folks can maybe tell us a solution or what they know today, but our I&I was, in the recent storms, was considerably more than I expected. So that'd be nice to hear a report in the future on that. And solutions to that problem.
Vice Mayor Thompson.
This last Saturday, April 27th, a team and I planned and executed a prayer breakfast. We had elected officials from pretty much every branch of our government, from our congressman, our senator, assemblyman, district attorney, chief police, sheriff, 4 city councils represented, and pastors from the whole region. You know, prayer has been a central part of this country since its founding, and it was great to just see such a support from the whole region to get together and pray. Because, you know, as elected officials, there's a lot of things that they face, a lot of pressures, balancing. It was interesting to hear from them as far as the pressures that they face balancing their private and public life, their family, and their community responsibilities. And so, anyway, there was a really great event, really well attended, and actually Mission Impossible did the catering for us and provided a great meal at a very reasonable rate, and looking forward to see that happen again next year.
Thank you. Well, let's see. I don't know. I went to quite a few things. So I don't. It just sort of all, you know, I get 24 hours a day and I just go full speed all the time. So there's so much to report involved in a lot of these things as well. And one of the things that I would like to, speaking on Vice Mayor Thompson's comments, is at this prayer breakfast, the electeds who spoke, one thing that was very common that they prayed for, it was peace. and just any elected, there is even if you're not on the dais, your community and your council is on your mind. So, I would just remind the community that when people are serving, there's a lot, the phones ring constantly. There's always something to take care of. So if you want to think of someone and help them, think about peace. Just whoever you pray to or speak to, just ask them to bestow peace on each elected and the staff, so they can have that quiet time to recollect themselves. It's important. Thank you. Okay. Can you make it? Yes. Councilmember Goodson? Yes. We're moving on to future agenda items.
I have a request from the city staff. I miss getting those quarterly or every month reports from the departments, what projects are moving forward, what is being put in the parking lot, futuristic goals. And so if we could reactivate that process, I think it would really be helpful for all of us to be on the same page. Thank you.
You will get that at the next council meeting.
Bill had already sent out that request to departments to have it on the 21st, to hand it to you on the 21st.
All right.
Thank you. Anyone else with future agenda items?
Yeah, just actually an update in regards to that, as far as the Table Mountain fencing, border, whatever that's we talked about.
I just talked with our engineer about that today. We've come up with a concept for the guardrail and the hand railing that I believe will be not as aesthetically pleasing as what I had designed, but it's probably going to be safer and probably work more effectively. So Mike will be bringing that back. We're going to slow down a touch on that project because we have a sewer pipeline that goes through there that we have to upgrade. So what we don't want to do is do this, then immediately dig it right back up. So Mike has that. It's going to be coming back to the council, I believe, the sewer line upgrade in the next month. And so once we get all of those things lined up together, we'll also bring you a concept of what this is going to look like with the guardrail going down through there so that you can give us your input on this.
Councilmember Pittman.
One of the things that might be help to our other agency, the Feather River Recreational Park District, I know they have been granted the money out of the SBF to finish the trail underneath the bridge, but they've run into some hiccups. So I would ask if there's any help that we can assist them with, in particular ownership of property. I know that's a difficult issue, and this community has really focused on that being a high priority for planning and park purposes. It'd be great if we have any ability to help. I saw the maps, and if there's somebody's asking me, I'd just say the city owns it and let it go, but I don't know I can have any authority to do that.
Mr. Murphy did a very good job of pulling all the agencies together. We met, I think it was about 2 weeks ago. And there is at least one piece of property where the title is very clouded, and we're trying to, we being Mr. Murphy, is trying to work through that. So he has pulled the agencies together to try and get that done.
Well, I appreciate that discussion because I know it's very high on the parks planning community input to get that section of trail done. And if the city can help in any way, I would certainly hope that we do so.
Administration reports.
I have several comments. First of all, I sent the email out to council, but I think it's good for the public to know. The State Department of Finance releases its population estimates May 1 of every year. Obviously, we had the Camp Fire, but we were the second fastest growing city in the state of California. We grew by 20.4%.
Wow.
So if you experience issues and maintenance issues, besides the budget issues, you have to add the population to it. And then on top of that, that doesn't count the debris workers, and as we mentioned at the last meeting, Mr. Seidenglantz had a press release that had said he has 3,000 debris workers on his site, not to mention the trucks going down our roads. So it's quite a burden on the community. Positive news is that Gary is working like heck. We have many permits in. We have some major developers not only picking up more lots, but also folks talking about bringing in property and developing. They're primarily talking about market rate housing. They're not necessarily talking about lower income housing, but there's tremendous interest in that. And then the final point is continue to attend meetings with FEMA and Office of Emergency Services. And we have talked very much about both sewer capacity and the infiltration in our system. It's another area. We just have an old sewer system in the town. And if we could replace it, we would, but it's probably literally hundreds of millions, not just a million. So we have to address those areas that are most critical. Unfortunately, while they say on one hand they want to help, they also say it's going to be 48 months before they can realistically help. And my concern about that, just being direct, is that we have a disaster in this country literally probably once a month. So maintaining focus on one area is almost impossible. I will say they've indicated that they want to help and will help. I'm a little skeptical about that. That's all I had.
Thank you, Tom.
I want to let the council know that I'll be changing my last name.
Oh, that's right.
Kurt and I got married in a very small ceremony this Saturday.
Were you invited, Bill?
We'd all like to thank you for our invitations, Ruth.
It was a very
I
nice,
think
intimate,
ours is
small
lost.
ceremony. I couldn't be happier, but
So
it
your
might take me
new
a while.
last name is
Duncan.
Duncan.
Duncan. Yeah, it might take me a while to get through all that changing of the name, but I will be doing that.
Is that with a C or a K? Not like the donut. Okay, well, congratulations. Absolutely wonderful.
Thank you. Kurt's probably watching, so he'll like that.
May the 4th be with you.
Yeah. I should add, too, that SCORE did get back off on the Orchard Crest subdivision. I didn't know if you knew that or not on FEMA. They decided not to populate that at all, so our emergency special meeting got canceled, but they did send us $5,000 for a capacity study, so.
And the reason that they gave for backing off of that is because the fire victims have quickly assimilated back into the community. So there is no need for those trailers, and that is absolutely good news. People are being taken care of, and their needs are being met by their community, which is absolutely wonderful.
I'd like to jump in there because I am personally very concerned. I think the temporary housing probably has been met, but we have 50,000 people who were displaced. 15 to 20,000 have probably left the area, and certainly after the school year will leave. We really need permanent housing of any sort if we're going to keep our economy going in the region, but particularly Oroville. We just need this housing.
So the new planning service is ready for 2,500 new homes this year.
Yeah, absolutely. He's going to build them himself.
What are you going to do next week, Leo?
I told you, bring your running shoes.
Okay. Bill, anything?
Just to update the council at the fire victim housing at the corporation yard. We've received plans for that from the North Star Engineering now, which is being reviewed by our city staff. Once those are reviewed, we should start seeing some work down there. So Tasha Levinson asked, what was the status of that at our last meeting. So just to let Tasha know that we've received those plans now. We've been waiting on those. So we should be seeing some progress down there before long.
I also need to add then to that the Community Foundation is drafting an agreement, which of course our attorney will review, but we'll get to you for final review and approval, or whatever action you want to take.
Thank you. Mike, you're hiding back there? Anything? Good. Mr. Attorney, nothing? Gary?
First, I'd like to thank you guys for your support and everything. Bring to your attention, we did get the first 2 houses out at by the airport, D.R. Horton finaled, and have many more moving forward. They did indicate that as soon as they are put out for sale, that they are sold, and 75% of the sales are going to campfire victims. So that's that with the permanent housing. They are also, and I can just give a attaboy to all of the city council and staff that had worked to preserve the other subdivision there on the other side of the airport, because D.R. Horton now is in negotiations of purchasing that and building some probably upper scale homes there than what they started out there, so they're moving forward on that. Also, the KFC started breaking ground, so if you see that, they're breaking ground, going to start building up there. You can also see Chipotle has started breaking ground there, so we have good progress there. I was a guest speaker at the Napa Solano chapter ICC. ICC is the International Code Council, which I was guest speaker there last week. Tomorrow we'll be going to the Division of State Architects office. I represent the California Association of Building Officials and all building departments in the state on the code development, writing of the codes for the 2019 California building codes. And also I would like to give a comment on Bureau Veritas. Thank you very much for bringing them in. I have worked with Bureau Veritas throughout the years since 1999, and am very glad to have them on board to help. And Leo is, I'm glad to have him here to help me. So, thank you,
Gary. Assistant Chief Dill.
Thank you. Just a couple things to make you aware of. The public safety department's work in the early planning phases of the meet and greet in the community in the South Oroville area. The date's not been set yet, but that's in the process. Also, this Thursday evening is, if you don't know, May is Peace Officer Memorial Month. Since back in 1962-ish, it was established, and specifically the week of May 15th. But on this Thursday, May 9th, there is a Butte County Peace Officer Memorial event that everybody's invited to, not only law enforcement, but community leaders, friends, and family. It's held at the neighborhood church in Chico. Previous Butte County law enforcement that have died in the line of duty will be honored there, along with those nationwide that have paid the ultimate price. You're welcome to attend, all the council members. I'll be there.
Thank you, Chief.
What time is that, Officer Deal?
That starts at 7 p.m. at the neighborhood church in Chico, and it goes into, the memorial is until 8:30 with refreshments to follow that.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Correspondence? It's attached. Well, this adjourns our meeting for May 7th, 2019. Thank you.
Excuse me.